The Series S has been in the news a lot more lately for a couple different reasons. Some of it good, some of it not so good. One of which is the fact there's a new remodel of it coming out, which I have right here that Xbox sent out for me to unbox, review, and check out. So we're gonna open this up, check out this new model, but I also want to talk a little bit about how I think this is a bit of an underappreciated system, and that I think there's a lot of very interesting plans for Xbox's future that the Series S is important to. So here we have the black Series S. Obviously it comes with a black core controller similar to the one that comes with the Series X normally. Little box design going on. Let's go ahead and just rip this open and check it out. Now, if you haven't seen anything about this revision just yet, this is the same internals as the regular white one for the most part. The one important difference is that this one does have greater storage. The regular white Series S is a 512GB SSD, whereas the one in this system is a full terabyte, same as the Series X. All right, here we go. Let's open it up. Power your dreams. Wow, I think it's been a little bit since I unboxed the original Series S, but I'm pretty sure that had white wrapping, so it is kind of a fun thematic thing. They did black for this one, for being a black system. Let's let that off. Yep, this thing is still tiny and very light. All right, and there we go. Oh yeah, that actually looks a lot better in person than I thought it would. Just to be honest, one of the things I really like in systems, if you've watched me for a while, is I talk a lot about liking contrasts. Like, I never like when a system is one solid color. And so what I really like about the white Series S is that it's white, but it has that black accent from the grills. The black on the grill for this, I can't tell if it's just because of the material difference or if it is actually a different black. But there's just a little bit of contrast going on between that and the main body that looks really nice to me. Pretty sure this is the exact same black as the Series X. Let's grab it. Where's go grab the Series X. Cool, so we have a controller, and yep, this is a black Series controller. All right, so I have my Series X. It's hard to tell a little bit because of the way that we're lighting our set, but I actually think this is a little bit of a different black. So that's interesting though, that it's not actually the exact same black as the system. It's a little brighter in tone. And that's probably what I'm noticing on the fan grill here. The fan grill is probably the same kind of black, so it's just a little deeper, and then you just get a bit more lightness on the body, which I like. I think if it was uniform, I wouldn't like it as much. I like the tiny bit of contrast it gives. Interesting. It is a little bit different. It's just like a very dark gray. So there's a new SKU and a new color with more storage, great. But the problem it's also been running into is the conversation about whether or not it is holding back development of games for Xbox platforms. And I think there's two titles very recently that do a really great job of illustrating, I think, the really kind of good end of the spectrum of what can happen with the system, and then the not so great. On the good end of the spectrum is Starfield, a first-party exclusive title that is also coming out on PC as well. But we're seeing in a lot of the early reviews, as well as just hands-on demonstrations with the system, how the Series S version actually looks really nice. To kind of put it side by side with the Series X version of the game, Series X runs at an internal resolution of 1440p that then uses upscaling techniques to hit 4K. Whereas the Series S is starting at 900p. But when you look at the actual final image that's being put out by both versions of the systems, while there are absolutely some advantages and benefits of the Series X version, Series S looks really, really close while maintaining the same frame rate and performance otherwise, which is honestly impressive. The other end of the spectrum, though, you have all the recent stuff that was going on with Baldur's Gate 3, a game that initially announced a hard release date for PC with a PlayStation 5 release date happening a month later, which we're actually just about to reach. Whereas Xbox was left with a big old question mark for a while because of the very specific issue they were running into of feature parity. If you haven't heard this term before, feature parity is the idea that all of games should be identically the same across the Series S and Series X versions of the game, outside of things like the visuals and graphics that are possible because of the relative power of the systems. But as far as just gameplay and concepts and all that kind of stuff, nothing should be unique to one system or the other. And for the most part, that normally isn't an issue because oftentimes features don't necessarily have that much to do with processing power of the systems, outside of, again, things like visual effects, which are the main key difference between them. One place where that does come up, however, is the concept of split screen. Because of the way that split screen gameplay works, it's a more demanding aspect on a system, and it's something that, as of right now, it seems like they just can't get to work on the Series S. And so because of that feature parity mandate that Xbox had, they did not want to ship the game to Xbox just yet because they weren't going to be able to ship split screen as a feature on Series S, which the Series X could potentially support. Now, recently during Gamescom, we learned that is no longer the case. Larian and Xbox came together and made an agreement that in this particular instance, Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be coming to Xbox with a feature missing for Series S, at least initially. They have said that it's something they want to try and bring to it down the line eventually still, but they're willing to give up this concept of parity for the sake of making sure the game comes to the platform in general. Which personally, I think is a win for most people, but it has also now raised this question of whether or not parity in the first place is a good idea, and if getting rid of the parity promise is actually a problem for anyone moving forward that has invested in a Series S and focused on it. In my mind, no. Well, I understand the goal of something like feature parity, and I think it's a really great rule to stick to for the majority of the time, especially for very specific cases like this, where it's a feature like split screen that can be something people are interested in, but isn't necessarily a make or break core feature. I would say it's absolutely worth the distinction of just making it available on the system so people can enjoy the core game, while leaving split screen as something that can be enjoyed on the more powerful system, but it's just a limitation of the Series S for now. Because ultimately the main game itself, something that a lot of people might be interested in playing and not necessarily care about something like split screen, are going to be able to enjoy it thanks to that choice being made. Moving ahead, I'm really hoping that's actually the kind of same consistent logic that's going to be used in situations like this, where, look, feature parity is something that should always be a goal, it should be something you strive for, but there are ultimately realities of when that just can't be the case, or at least can't be done on the same kind of timeline like we're seeing with this Baldur's Gate example. And I think this exact comparison too between these two examples, right, of Starfield and Baldur's Gate, also further really helps push where I think the Series S really shines, in that its main goal really is to be your easy introductory to the Xbox ecosystem, especially if you already have another system as your main focus. There's absolutely something to be said also for its value as being a just simply more affordable console and the first one that you want to grab if you just want to dip your toes in current-gen gaming, but I really do believe that one of the biggest ways this console benefits is being that easy way of just getting your toe immediately into the Xbox ecosystem if you already have access to another console and are looking to diversify what games you're able to play. Now, I will say specifically, if one of your big beefs with this system is just the fact that it's a digital-only console and you really want to remain physical-only as long as possible, totally get it. I respect that, and that is one of the main reasons why I would actually argue for getting a Series X over a Series S, is choosing to stick in that physical pool. But as time goes on, we're seeing what's happening with a lot of more advanced upscaling techniques that games are taking advantage of. The gap between this and the Series X is, I think, visually a lot closer than a lot of people realize. And this also plays into why I think it's such a great argument for when your goal with the system is getting introduced to the Xbox ecosystem while still playing on other platforms, is because of the fact that if any company is going to make sure that its games are going to run amazingly well on the secondary SKU, it's Xbox. Their own first-party games are going to be the ones where they make sure that Series S versions are going to look comparatively very strong and perform compared to the higher spec Xbox Series X version, which Starfield shows to be a great example of. Because look, the past couple years have obviously been a bit of a slow burn. There's been some releases here and there, but it's no secret, even Phil Spencer has talked about it, that they just haven't really had that strong of a first-party presence yet. But when you look at their presentation from this past Summer Games Fest and the number of titles that are finally beginning to meet release, Starfield being one of the first really big ones, there's a lot of first-party stuff coming out that I think is going to start catching a lot more eyes. And with the promise of these games coming up very soon, that's where I think the Series S is very interesting, because if you're looking at any of those and you already have some other main system you focus on, like the Switch or PlayStation, and you don't necessarily want to throw down $500 to get another mainline system, here's this cheaper, more affordable option that's going to be able to play all these games. It's likely going to run all of them very well and look great doing it, and if anything, can be used as a native Game Pass machine. And that's really, I think, the main reason for the system to exist. Well, part of the reason also is the fact that it's trying to get more people comfortable with just going all digital, a goal that I don't fully agree with, but I totally understand the goal. I would love to have a cheaper SKU option that still had the ability to read discs. But the other goal, I think, is that, look, Microsoft is aware of the fact that they're currently not the market leader when it comes to hardware sales for consoles. Ultimately, there are a lot more people out there right now who are already ingrained in the PS4 ecosystem and brought that over into PS5s. There are people who focus on Nintendo and just play on Nintendo Switches. And the Series S opens up an interesting argument for, hey, if you're looking at our stuff at all, if you're interested in Game Pass, if you're interested in these upcoming exclusives that are coming to the platform, here's a cheaper way of diving in. You don't necessarily have to throw down the traditional full price for a console. And as we move forward into this next year, as we potentially begin to see some more payoff of games being released from all the acquisitions that Microsoft has made over the past decade, I'm very curious to see what the adoption looks like between the two systems. So that's just my 2 cents about it. I think there are some limitations about the system because of its lower power spec, but in many ways I think it's being heavily underestimated of what's actually possible on the hardware with how upscaling technology has been going and the kind of support that it's getting from first-party developers. But I think it's an underestimated system for what kind of gameplay experiences it can offer at its lower price point and can potentially begin to shine really brightly. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button to let me know, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys later.